does look very, very suspect. The fact that a lot of the people who the Delhi police seems to be questioning, seems to have arrested, a lot of them are students, a lot of them are very, very prominent members of civil society. So why do you think that this investigation is fair?
First of all, let me say that a lot of the points have already been explained by the Commissioner of Police Delhi in his letter to Mr. Ribeiro in response to what Mr. Ribeiro had to say in his letter. Uh, and he explained some of the facts based on which the Delhi police is going in the direction in which it is going. I have very limited knowledge of the details of the investigation, but nonetheless, I am a little better placed than Mr. Ribeiro and also my other colleagues who are on record having quoted from Mr. Ribeiro's letter and having expressed their anguish at the way things are going. And they consider that this entire investigation is kind of partisan and it is going in one particular direction against a certain community, in favor of a certain community. And the general perception is that it's all happening because of government orders and so on and so forth. Now, let me tell you that on the basis of the limited inputs that I have, I know that the Delhi police has come up with some unimpeachable evidence which is technical in nature, which is not somebody's hearsay, somebody has mentioned somebody's name somewhere. No, it is based on technical surveillance, technical inputs, etc., which proves that behind the riots was a large-scale conspiracy, and a number of the conspirators were linked to one another. There were exchanges of messages. Things were happening in a very concerted manner, in a very planned manner. People were meeting at these blockades in northeast Delhi, and they were planning what to do next. They were all going in a certain direction to a pre-planned, shall we say, scheme. So, having gone through that kind of evidence, I am with the Delhi police on this matter that yes, there is a strong case not only against Umar Khalid, but others who are already in custody, such as the lady members of Pijra Code and others. And the Delhi police has a strong case.
But sir, how do you say that? Because we don't know what evidence there is, and as this police commissioner said, that he can't, because of its sensitive nature, he can't put it out there. However, what we do have is the Delhi High Court order, which granted bail to that Pinjra Tod activist Divyangana Kalita, which said that there was no evidence that the police had shared with them, which showed that her speeches may have instigated, or anything that shows that it would have instigated violence or the riots. So that is the only judicial judgment that we have till now, which seems to suspect what the Delhi police has or its evidence. So how come you are so sure?
I think you're not aware of what the court's orders were in the case of Natasha Narang. Natasha Narang's case, which came up before the Delhi High
She's
Court.
also another student, yes.
Yes, another student. Bail was denied to her. And in the open court, the Delhi High Court said that there is a case. There is a case of conspiracy.
I understand that, it's wrong that I'm questioning you, but I just want to understand, and I want to understand what makes you certain of the veracity of the police's claims. Because what about what all these officers are saying, sir? They are from the force, sir. They are saying as well. One thing that they keep pointing out, we'll speak about the students in just a bit, and how, because in a day or two, they're saying they'll file the charge sheet. But what we do know is that if they're going by speeches, then the people who were seen instigating, every time it's being talked about that these activists what they said, whether it's Sitaram Yechuri or anything, that their criticism instigated violence. Well, we do know, we have evidence, we've all heard certain BJP leaders who did make incendiary speeches, whose words seem to be inciting violence, but no action has been taken against them.
Some people did go to the court, have gone to the High Court, asking for orders to direct the Delhi police to proceed against the speeches that were made by Mr. Kapil Mishra and a minister and Parvesh Verma. And that matter is still sub judice. The court has still not given its verdict whether a case is clearly made out or not. Because the present case, please remember, is connected with Northeast Delhi riots. Now, to connect the speeches that were made with the riots, especially of Mr. Kapil Mishra, which was made, say, just before the riots actually broke out, a day before the riots broke out. The general legal opinion is that it is not connected. It is not, it says, I mean, Mr. Kapil Mishra, I don't want to defend him, but I'm just trying to give you a perspective. He is saying, he is requesting the police that please remove these people from this road and allow the traffic to flow. Otherwise, we will hold ourselves back till Mr. Trump is in town. Once Mr. Trump leaves, then we will do it ourselves. This is all that there is to.
He says we will do it, we won't even listen to you. He says that we won't even listen to the police.
Yeah, but remember that it was not something which was inciting riots. He was just saying, he was talking about that particular roadblock or chakka jam as it is called. If you have been through the details of the investigation, you would know that there are a lot of preparations made. Since there were stones kept, bricks kept, acid kept on the rooftops. They show that while there was preparations in pursuance of a certain conspiracy in community A was not there in community B. Let me put it this way.
No, so okay, but how do you're saying, if you're saying Kapil Mishra, which as you yourself said was 2 days before the riot started, went off, if that can't be connected, and he's saying very clearly that if the police fails to do it, then we will clear it ourselves. That, if you're saying that's not enough to show a link, but how is there a link between what Umar Khalid is saying or what Divyangana Kalita is saying or what the other students are saying and what the riots happened? Are you
No,
saying that the police has much more on Sitaram Yechuri and Yogendra Yadav than it does on Kapil Mishra?
first let me make it clear, Sunetra, that Mr. Yechuri or Mr. Yogendra Yadav or the others, including Jayati Ghosh and all, they are not arraigned as accused.
But their name is there in an attachment, and it's part of apparently a confession statement which is not even signed. So see, that is the thing, we are going by what we know. What is interesting is the police deems it fit to call these people who have very good reputations in order to question them, but it is based on something which is not even signed, which the police claims is a confession statement but is not even signed by that particular person.
This is an information which is not correct. There are statements under 164 CRPC before a magistrate. And there also, they're not saying that so and so came and incited us. That is not the case of the police. First of all, they are not accused. And secondly, it is not their case that the speeches made by Mr. Yogendra Yadav or Mr. Yechuri or XYZ incited people to indulge in riots. And that also goes for Umar Khalid. Please do not think that Umar Khalid has been made an accused only because of that portion of his speech that is made in Amravati. That when Mr. Trump is here, we'll do this and this and this. No, the evidence against Umar Khalid is far more. And it is not only that speech. That speech forms very, very small portion of the body of evidence that the Delhi police has.
You find in this particular case Umar Khalid akin to being a terrorist?
Not akin to being a terrorist, because the UAPA only doesn't talk about terrorism. It also talks of the use of violence or the use of this kind of violent movements and so on. So it is covered by a certain portion of the UAPA.
So this whole thing about blocking traffic, it actually sounds the whole one of the things that has been mentioned by the DCP, I think in a webinar, was that they use the modus operandi of blocking traffic. What does that mean?
See, if you block traffic on all the major roads, which probably would have happened if action had not been taken, uh, you know, if you calculate the cost of to the public or cost to honest citizens who had to commute between Delhi and Noida during those days of when the Shaheen Bagh blockade was happening, it was phenomenal. And if we don't pay any price on the inconvenience that is caused to members of public, if the time that you are taking to travel from between Delhi and Noida, say was X, it was virtually X plus 1.5 hours, 2 hours. That was the kind of difference. You want to show your protest, there are protest sites. If your intentions are only to express your displeasure with the government over something, you go and sit at the prescribed places and don't inconvenience other people.
But sir, does that mean that yes, that's the whole point, that's the whole idea? So you're now questioning, and the police seems to be questioning the whole idea of Shaheen Bagh. But does that deserve for them to be charged under UAPA?
No, no, no. People who are sitting at Shaheen Bagh are not being charged with UAPA. All that I am saying is that
But a lot of the people who have been questioned, sir, are ones who went there and they were protesting as well.
they may have been questioned. They may have been questioned to see if they were connected with the larger conspiracy or not. I'm not privy to that material. But you asked me a question that how do I look at a blockade, a traffic blockade of a major road connecting Delhi to Noida. So I was giving my reaction.
No,
That,
no, sir. What I was asking was that the DCP in a webinar, the special cell DCP said that the modus operandi that they found was that a lot of the people behind the conspiracy, they use the modus of having traffic jams, simultaneous traffic jams. That sounds a little.
yeah, so I'll tell you. No, this needs explanation. The Zafrabad road between again Delhi and Ghaziabad, that was a highway that was being blocked, that had been blocked, about which Kapil Mishra came and said, "You move them, otherwise we'll move them ourselves." Then the other plan, which is in the knowledge of the police, what the other planning was to block all the feeder roads to that highway. That means to detour from the highway if you want to go through the smaller roads and come back on the highway. They were planning to block that as well. So they had a very well etched out plan to block the traffic between Delhi and Ghaziabad for a long time to come.
But how is that linked to the death of 53 people, sir?
No, no. Again, please understand the conspiracy is not only to cause deaths, is not only 53 people have to be killed. No. The conspiracy has various contours. One of the contours of the larger conspiracy was to have these roadblocks, traffic blocks.
So, sir, it's obvious that you, because you say that they've shared some information with you, you're quite convinced. I just want to wind up by asking you that in the past, you have criticized the Delhi police, especially with its action at Jamia University and the kind of raid that they conducted over there. I know that you're supporting them in this particular case, but the fact that over the past few months, we've seen this kind of, in fact, more than a year now, we've seen this kind of antagonistic relationship between the student community, between the civil society, and the Delhi police, it seems to be completely at loggerheads. There's a huge kind of trust deficit that is there between the Delhi police and these communities in the capital. Would you acknowledge that at least?
Most certainly. And the root cause of that is the lack of communication, because the Delhi police has refrained from sharing the details because it had certain compulsions. The compulsions are very clear. When a matter is under investigation, not every detail can be shared, because one detail which is shared can affect further investigation. You have to, the disclosure made by one person may lead the investigation to another person. But if you make that disclosure public, that so and so has said this, then the further action gets affected. Uh, I just want to make one last comment. If you're finished with your questions, the narrative that is in public domain is lopsided. It is lopsided for the simple reason because the police has refrained from sharing the details of its investigation. It has refrained from issuing rejoinders to every point that has been made. It has also refrained from making some broader points. For instance, the civil activists, Jayati Ghosh, Yogendra Yadav, and so on. These people, by their names had figured in the charge sheet, supplementary charge sheet submitted 1 month back. But have you ever thought of the reason why it has become public only 3 or 4 days back? Why it came on the front page of Indian Express? Why not when the charge sheet was submitted a month
It's
back?
very difficult to access, sir. They obviously didn't want to share the details because there's
The charge sheet is a public document. Everyone knew that the supplementary charge sheet has these names. But everyone also knew the names which have appeared. They knew that their names are just there in a casual sort of way because they figure in a.
so we know that charge sheet is public, but you know that if you want to, or if the police wants to, they'd really tell the court not to share it. So, sir, we know that very well. You know that happens with your former organization, CBI. So it obviously can happen with the Delhi police as well. That certain charge sheets just don't come out publicly for quite some time.
No, suffice it to say that these people were already in the know of the fact that their names are there mentioned in the disclosures made by certain accused. It may not have reached the media till the story broke out in a prominent sort of way in the Indian Express, just a few days back. Uh, what I want to say is that let all the cards be placed on the table by the Delhi police in the first charge sheet, and also once the charge sheet in respect to Mr. Khalid is placed subsequently, things will become very clear that it is not as if it is a witch hunt, it is not as if it is a pogrom, it is not as if it is directed towards a certain community. It has been done very fairly, and the evidence that is on record is of a nature that will be difficult to question.
So, sir, you are saying that once the charge sheet is filed, that your 9 colleagues and Julio Ribeiro, they will all be convinced with the kind of evidence?
They are at least two of them are already convinced. Mr. Ribeiro has already after receiving the letter from the Commissioner of Police, I think he has understood. See, the problem is when I don't know all the facts of the case, I cannot come to any kind of conclusion. But when I am told, when I am made privy to the things that are there on record, then my opinion might change, So I'm sure with things becoming public after the filing of the charge sheet, a number of people's opinions will change, and hopefully your opinion also changes.